Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous podcast, hosted by Bruce Hutcheon, in episode number 142.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutcheon.
Mark Evenson is a proud owner of a wide antlered buck known by several names in northern Wisconsin. Include Jim, 2-footer, and Wide Boy. And it has scored the widest inside spread buck in Wisconsin and is fourth highest all-time in Boone and Crockett. Mike pulled the deer skull and rack from a creek back in November of 2014. Evenson, who lives in Rice Lakes but hunts in Rusk County, found no deer body or bones at the site. Everyone knew the buck's inside spread at 30 and 5/8 between the antler beams was something special. He also knew about the deer long before he found the skull and antlers. It seems everybody in the area a few miles southwest of Weyerhaeuser knew about the wide-anchored buck. It was crazy out there, said Evenson, who wrote a letter for the buck, basically saying that some folks' ruthless pursuits of the deer were, in the end, fruitless. It's a trophy deer that died of old age. Hi, this is your host of Whitetail Rendezvous, Bruce Hutcheon, and I'm sitting up in north central Wisconsin with Mike Evenson. And Mike brought over a rack that you'll be able to see on our website coming up just in a couple of days. But this is a spectacular white-tailed deer. It's the fourth largest inside spread at 30 and 5/8 that has been recorded with the Boone and Crockett Club. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Mike, let's just go back and talk about how many years you actually hunted this deer until you found it. Unfortunately, or fortunately for the deer, it died of natural causes. Let's talk about when your odyssey began for the Kadlec Buck.
Well, it began in it had to have been 2004, the first time I was going in to put some stands in the woods. I didn't have any weapons with me because it was preseason, and he was standing broadside in a logging road, probably around, I would say, 50 yards or so. And ever since that point, it was a mission to go after this thing.
And what year was that again?
That was 2004.
2004, you laid eyes on him. Was he this big at that point in time?
He had quite a spread, so he was large.
And do you think he was a 2.5, 3.5-year-old deer at that time?
I'm thinking it looked like 4.
Wow.
Right.
And you found him, and what year did you find him?
I found him in 2008.
Okay, so 4 years, so he had a pretty good long life. If he's 4.5 years old, then he was, 8.5.
Yeah, right in there. 7.5, 8.5. He wasn't a young deer the first time I seen him.
Yeah. So let's talk about when you put eyes on him the first time. What did you think?
I really wasn't thinking much because I was so amazed. I had no idea he was in there. He was running with another one that the neighborhood called Handlebars. And yeah, that's same inside spread. Yeah. So the genetics were there, and I was amazed. I couldn't believe that I had an opportunity with something like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many years have you been hunting this tract of land?
I had been in there since 1992. So I had a lot of time on the properties out there.
And how large a tract is it?
Well, my friend owns about 1,600 acres of continuous acreage, okay. All woods and swamps, and he's manages forest.
Okay.
And there's also 800 acres to the south that was an old Boy Scout camp that became a development. And the protective covenants on that property are also no hunting.
Oh, wow. So there was a sanctuary there.
Oh, yes. And this deer had frequently been seen in there as well by other people.
So why do you think he came out? Why he left the sanctuary?
He was fairly comfortable with going around the whole neighborhood. I mean, people had seen him in alfalfa fields, and there's cropland outside the forest, that he lived in, and he did make it out. Yeah.
Now, talk to me about the crew that you hunted with. How many guys or gals make up your hunting crew?
We have 4 of us that are, hunting partners, and we're all different, so we have different approaches to things. So some would go south and some would go on the west side, and my personal choice was the north side, of the properties. Mm-hmm. And, so we hunted as a group, but we went our separate ways.
No, were you still hunting, stand hunting, ground blind hunting? By stand, I mean ladder stands or tree stands?
Ladder stands, climbers, mostly climbers. We don't put any kind of a screw pegs in the trees on that whole 1,600 acres. It's either a climber or a strap-on stand.
Okay.
My friend who owns the property, he's a forester. He manages, and he hates seeing nails and, so,
right.
We hunted primarily out of ladder stands that we could leave in on certain parts of that property.
Right. So tell us the first time that you were able to hunt this deer. Tell me about that story.
Well, the first encounter that I had with this deer, I was up in my tree stand, and I had an opportunity to watch him walk all the way around me on a ridge, about approximately 80 yards, and then he crossed over. And of course, I'm not fluent at 80 yards. I mean, that's like 40 yards outside my comfortable range.
Right. So we're talking archery then.
We're talking archery.
Okay. 80 yards is a poke.
Very. I've never seen this deer ever in gun season. Nobody has, So archery, most of the encounters of, with this deer, with myself and other people, is during the archery season.
Now, was he during the rut, or was this pre-rut?
It was pre-rut, actually, the first time I seen him.
Okay.
With the actual weapon in my hand, and it was close, though. It was very, I think it was probably, I think it was the last week of October. So, I mean, it was.
Oh, it's right on the threshold then.
Yeah, it was right on the threshold.
Okay.
Exactly.
So was he looking for acorns or mass crops, or was he just traveling?
At that point, he was eating acorns as he was browsing through.
Sure. And what did you think the first time you put eyes on him with a weapon in your hand?
I was actually praying he would take a right-hand turn instead of a left.
Honest man.
Yeah. And of course, he took the left, and he went on his merry way.
Do you think he winded you at all, or did he?
No.
You sense that he knew you were there?
He may have seen me. Because I don't know, all of a sudden there he was to my left. And then, like I said, there was approximately, at least 90 degrees, around me that he walked, so I caught him off to the left, and then I watched him walk all the way around the ridge, and then till he got to the logging road, and then he had his option of going right or going left.
And he went left.
He went left.
So when did you really realize that he was a world-class deer?
Actually, I never thought of him as a world-class deer until I found him, and I have a one of my buddies. He's a professional hunter. And he brought it down to, he guides in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, which is also
There's some big bucks down there.
Yeah. And he was the one that got me all excited, thinking that it was number one. You know, they literally could not find anything larger than that in the books.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean anything with the Boone and Crockett people, because the book, it could still be of record, but it's always in the book from 170 on. And his net was 166. So it'll go in the first publication after it's recorded. And then it's not in any more publications after that.
It makes it one time and done.
One and done. And he's on record, you know, forever, you know.
Yeah.
So
when you came back to your buddies, when you had seen the deer at 80 yards, what'd they say?
They really don't say anything, because, you know, we do see lots of deer, you know, and if somebody says, you know, I've seen a really big deer, you know, it's not uncommon in there, you know, to see very large deer. It's kind of hard to explain to them what I actually seen. You know, I said it had just lots of horn and a wide spread. You know, and that's all I could say about him.
Now, how many years have you been hunting this tract of land?
That since 91.
Since 91.
1991.
Wow.
You know,
So that was your first close encounter. When was the next one?
The next one actually wasn't until the next year. You know, I didn't see him again, and I didn't hear
That
anybody.
was it.
That was it. And I was walking in on a logging road to go back to a stand, and there's a lot of knolls and hills. It's part of the Blue Hills system, you know. And what we have there is a lot of these high knolls, like a Buffalo County. You know, not quite that high, but they sit on the top of these things. You know, and they watch you walk in, you know, so it's really tricky in that part of the country. And I was just beelining it to my stand. And all of a sudden I came around the corner on this knoll, and there he was in the brush. You know, and I couldn't do anything about it because we were looking at one another.
Right.
And this was probably a 15-yard.
Oh, my goodness. He was napping and you caught him napping.
I caught him napping. And he got up and took off straight away from me. Gone. And then, you know, after that, you know, I went back to my stand, and, you know, of course I didn't see him that evening.
Sure.
Well, I couldn't get out there for another 2 or 3 days, you know, because of my work. And this is where I feel like such a fool, is I was walking back on the same logging road, going to the same stand, and he got me again coming around that corner, and he was in the same spot.
Oh, favorite place for him, wasn't it?
Favorite place for him, but he was a little further in. Same thick brush. I could see him standing there looking at me, and nothing I could do about it. And gone again. I hadn't seen him again, you know, and so, of course, the next time I went out there, I thought I was going to get the upper edge on him. And I say, and I take that back. It wasn't the next time. It was the next 8 or 9 times. I went the long way around and thought I was going to creep up and get him by stalking him, thinking he might be in that spot again. Well, I did that, like I said, 8 or 9 times before I finally quit doing it anymore, because I never seen him there again. He's not that foolish.
Wow.
I was lucky to have seen him the second time in the same spot, and why I continued to make the long way around to try to get on this particular spot.
Yeah. Mature whitetails, as you know and I know, I get schooled every day.
Yeah.
We've been getting schooled at KO Farm here by 2 bucks, a big 9-pointer, a big 10-pointer that we have on cameras, but we'd never Kenny put eyes on him, I think, at 100 yards.
Right.
But he never came through the stand morning, evening, noontime. They're smart.
Yes, they are.
They really are smart. Well, let's talk about the discovery now. Let's talk about the discovery of the Kadlec Buck.
Well, it was actually the second weekend of rifle season. And my buddies usually stay in their stands, and because I know the area, fluently. And I got out of my stand approximately, around 10:30. And everybody else stays in their stand is usually the rule, because I have about a 5-mile trek, where
So you make a loop.
I make a loop around all the swamps and stuff for everybody. I stir them up in there. And I had just switched my boots over to my hiking boots and started walking down this dry creek bed. And I seen this thing sticking up out of a puddle. Was frozen, and one horn was sticking. It was sticking straight up. One side was stuck right in the mud, and I couldn't believe it. I just walked up on it and I chipped it out of the ice, and I still did my loop for him. Even though by the time I got to my first buddy, which was about 2 miles in there, he had to help me carry it out. That's how heavy them things were.
Oh my goodness! Did you take the whole skull, or just what was left?
Just what you see right there.
That's what was left.
That was all there was. I looked for body, but
no spine or anything?
Nothing. And according to the DNR, this thing had died the previous January, if not February, because of the bacteria growth around the base of the horns.
So he was a winter kill. Let's just say he might have been shot. Who knows?
Something.
Yeah, he died.
Right. In January, February, and keep in mind, this is November.
Wow.
And the squirrels didn't lay one mark on it because of the one puddle.
Right. And the brow tines are what, 14 inches?
I believe they're 11 3/4 per side.
Huge.
Yeah.
We'll go over the score in a minute.
Right.
And so that was discovery. So you grabbed the antlers, and I bet everybody was hooting and hollering when they saw you with that rack.
Oh, my first buddy, he couldn't wait to get his hands on it, and he was more than happy to carry it the rest of the way around,
Sure.
when we go pick up everybody else as we go.
Sure. And then what happened? Tell us the rest of the story then.
That's when we put the tape on it for the first time. We got back to the trucks.
Yeah.
And it actually, when I first pulled it out, it was 31 1/8. And it had shrunk after, when we brought it in, and it shrunk down to that 30 5/8. It was 31 1/8 when we at the same measurement spots. And as it wasn't, I bet you it wasn't 5 days later, and it had already shrunk down to where you see it right now.
Wow. It's just an amazing rack, and like I said, a brief video is going to be up on the website in conjunction with the release of the show, so you'll be able to see that, ladies and gentlemen. So why don't we just grab the score sheet, and you can tell the people real quickly. Just go through the score sheet, the left and the right, and just read it off. And this was a Boone and Crockett registered.
Yep. This is measured by the guy up in Hayward, Sensky.
Okay.
And what's impressive is that even like the G1s and the G2s, they're only like an eighth and or a 3/8 difference. So I mean, it's so
very symmetrical.
Yes,
very symmetrical.
So that's what's mostly impressive. The score, at 166. 166 5/8 they have down here is scored as an 8-pointer. So it's phenomenal to me. It's crazy. But he didn't get the full credit for the inside spread because they only give you credit for the longest main beam.
Right.
So he didn't get 100% credit for the 30 5/8. It's in the 25 range. Is what they gave him credit for, but
so tell us about the brow tines. They're swords. I mean,
yeah, them brow tines. They were. Try to see which one this is from the main beam. I think they're. I guess it says here they're 9 5/8. Right there.
No, 10 and 7/8,
Yep,
and 10
there it
and
is.
10 and 6/8. Only an 8 difference. So they were pushing 11 inches, and they're just swords. Dramatic, dramatic. So you got the deer, you got it scored, or you took it home. And then you were mentioning something about helicopters, or what was that? The backfill? Kind of fill me in on that. In the warm up, you were telling me about helicopters, and I go, "What?"
Yeah. It was for years. I mean, I had to deal with some real, people hunting out of my stands, and that the bottom line is one of the neighbor kids is responsible for the trail cam picture, that you see on the table here. And he put it on the internet.
No, it went viral.
It went nuts.
Oh my goodness.
We were walking in, going bow hunting. There was 3 or 4 of us, and we were walking in, and this helicopter was, you could see the close enough to where you could see the people in the helicopter. It was a 2-man's, and we didn't think nothing of it. We went hunting, and then I went back out there 3 or 4 days later, and I was up in my stand. I was sitting on a really nice trail, just beaten down, and it wasn't more than 150 yards down my trail. This helicopter came back all of a sudden, became visible again, and was actually hovering over my trail. And then I realized what they were doing. They were looking for this deer, because of all this notoriety that it received. I mean, the whole neighborhood was buzzing. Now you had a couple professional hunters that were aware of it, and it got really crazy fast.
So did that sort of kind of ruin the joy of the hunt, or for you guys? Or
it wrecked it for me, because I was fighting people for my stands that I've never seen before. And,
but it's your stand.
My stand.
It's private land.
But most of it's private.
Okay.
Well, it's private land, but it's open under the forest crop program.
Oh, MLF or whatever.
Yeah.
Managed
wonderful
lands.
program.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. But I have exclusive rights on 120. Right. Because of, I'm the help caretake it.
Right.
Yeah. So he's my friend, lives in the city that owns it, and he's almost like a brother to me. So I got 120 acres that he allows me to have.
There you go.
So that's the bottom line. Yeah.
Okay, so now it's in that state program where they have to allow access to other people because it's in the state
correct.
program. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Understood. Now that makes a little more sense. So your life changed a little bit. The pressure got on it, and then when did people give up?
When I brought it to the newspaper and had them publish an article locally, just to let people know they can stop, going nuts over there, because that's what it was. They were all going crazy. And then, of course, it hit the Associated Press and just went boom. Because
you told them to stop because you found the buck.
The buck is found. Yes.
It's not out there. You got your hands
anymore.
on it.
That's correct.
And I own it. And the DNR, of course, do you report it to them, or
we were going to? In fact, I put my tag on it.
Okay.
Because I heard stories, of people finding, dead deer with, big horns, and they still had flesh on the bones.
Oh.
This did not.
Right.
Sitting there but I still tagged it before I even pulled it out of the woods, just in case I had to register it, just like you carcass tag. And
did you call the warden right away? Or?
My buddy did. The warden's already seen it on the internet.
Yeah.
3 hours after I had found it, my buddy, the professional hunter, the guy down in Buffalo County, is Mark Wagner. The guy knows everything about deer hunting.
Sure.
And he's got an 80-yard shot, like one of them guys.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he called the DNR, and the DNR said, "Oh, we already looked at it." And that's when I found out about the bacteria growth around the base.
Yeah.
They knew that it had died in January or February at that point.
Right.
So there was...
Did you get your tag back?
I never did. I didn't finish out the season because I didn't.
You were done.
I was done. I was done.
Yeah. Wow. And how has this notoriety, if you will, change you at all, or change your aspect on hunting? Or talk to me about that.
Well, the truth of the matter is I've been keeping it under wraps. It hasn't
Didn't go to AP. You said it went to Associated Press.
That was just the first, and in the beginning when I first found it, and then, after all of the hype went away, I just kept it under wraps. I had one person bring it to a Whitetail Classic out of the Twin Cities, was invited to a after season, it was at an after season party at one of the largest outfitter in Buffalo County.
Who was that?
I believe they call themselves Buffalo County Outfitters. That's it, and they're huge. That's where my buddy,
he works for him.
He guides for him, and he's not one of their full time. He just goes down there and fills in during the pressurized, part of the season. So that was kind of nice. There was a few, from what I understand, there was a few TV personalities, that type of thing, that were there.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So, have you seen anything that ever compares to this in the wild since?
I seen the one, and this is pretty embarrassing, but I seen the deer that he ran with. The following, handlebars, was still alive. The following season after that, we took a call out of the herd. It was about a 4-year-old crab claw.
Okay.
If you ever seen a 4-year-old crab, they're amazing. They're cool looking deer. Well, my buddy had just taken them.
Yeah.
And so we were all walking in to help him drag out. And not a one of us had our bow on us.
Oh, no.
There was handlebars standing broadside. He didn't have the inside spread, but he had twice the thickness at the mass. The mass was phenomenal, and short spikes, shorter, G2s and stuff. But
sure.
Yeah, there's a few of them out there, and I'm fairly certain that the genetics from this deer came from handlebars,
Oh, sure.
I never could understand why they would run together like that, but the neighbor has got
son,
video.
Cousins, whatever.
Yeah. Video in his backyard with them together, so they were buddies.
Well, tell me about this article. It's called "The Ghost Buck Hunter Discovers Record-Setting Rack of Elusive Deer in Rusk County." This is special to the Leader Telegram. Is that out of Eau Claire? The Leader Telegram?
That's out of Eau Claire.
Okay. What year was this article? If somebody wants to go read it.
I think it was in 2008. You could just Google Kadlec Buck, and there'll be a couple articles that'll pop up there.
Okay.
But it was the Rice Lake Chronotype, the local newspaper. They had originally picked it up, before it, hit Associated Press.
And does say Grishner from Rice Lake writes Rice Lake Chronotype, the story first appeared.
Right.
So if you want to, everybody out there, if you want to just Google, and how do you spell that, Kadlec?
Kadlec. Kadlec.
And so you can see the picture of Mike and his son, and a picture of the deer that sent this whole thing viral. And it's pretty impressive. It's not pretty. It's extremely impressive. So we're at the time of the show here, Mike. You got 4 guys you hunt with. You get to the landowner. So why don't you give them a shout out as much as you want, and we'll wrap the show.
Well, I just want to thank the guy that owns the property for allowing everybody to hunt there, and his name is Jim Swanky. His family has been in the timber business. His brother, I guess, is a phenomenal hunter. Mm-hmm. He's got a few poking youngs himself on his own properties, of course, but he's the only man I want to thank. He's been awesome about it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to wrap another special episode. I'm up in Wisconsin, your host, Bruce Hutcheon, doing the Whitetail Rut Report. And again, a good friend of mine's son, Vance Olson, suggested we get in touch with Mike. And it's been a pleasure to see and put my hands on this rack, because it's one of a kind. So with that, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Bruce.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.